Our State of the U.S. segment tonight, President Trump is accusing the Obama administration of wiretapping Trump Tower during the presidential campaign. The mainstream media widely rejected this allegation, and even some within the Trump administration sought to downplay the story. But the fact is, the Obama Justice Department and the FBI investigated associates of Donald Trump, likely Trump himself, in the heat of the presidential campaign. So is it really impossible to believe that they wiretapped Trump Tower? Take a look.
For the part of the national security apparatus that I oversaw as DNI, there was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign. I can't speak for other Title III authorized entities in the government or a state or local entity.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if the FBI, for instance, had a FISA court order of some sort for a surveillance, would that be information you would know or not know?
Yes.
You would be told this.
I would know that.
If there was a FISA court order
Yes.
on something like this.
Something like this, absolutely.
And at this point, you can't confirm or deny whether that exists?
I can deny it.
There is no FISA court order?
Not to my knowledge.
With me now from the Washington Free Beacon, Adam Kredo. Adam, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Adam, this is quite the allegation that President Trump made over the weekend. It came in the form of a tweet, as usual, not unusual for President Trump. You can see the tweet on the screen, actually, when he's talking about being tapped by the Obama administration. Terrible, he says. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. That's what he said. I mean, he posted a series of 4 tweets. Adam, what do you make of this?
Well, it's interesting. As far as I know from people I've spoken to and sources that I've reached out to about this, it is entirely plausible that, in fact, Trump in some way or fashion was bound up in some sort of wiretap. That is, that the FISA courts in some way had authorized this type of wiretap of officials surrounding him and his campaign. My understanding is that during an investigation into possible ties to Russia and business dealings, that a FISA warrant reached this type of stuff. Now, here's the real question, I think, and this is what I'd like to see the former DNI answer. If there was no such wiretap and that did not exist, as he says, where did the transcripts of the conversations that reporters at the New York Times and others were passed along about conversations between Michael Flynn and Russian officials, where did those come from? I think it's very curious that if in fact there was no sort of wiretap, there'd be no record of those conversations when in fact we all know there is. So from the Obama administration standpoint, I think some logic is missing.
Right, and I would like to, I guess I would like to add to that question and say, if there was this wiretap on an investigation into Trump himself or officials in the Trump campaign about allegations of connections or collusion with Russian banks, because that's what's being reported, then why haven't we heard anything further about that? Was nothing found? Did they find no evidence? Was he cleared of that? Is that investigation over? We heard nothing about that, but it seems that that might be the biggest story yet, that they didn't find anything if they did put a wiretap on that server. But Adam, I want to ask you about this stuff with the FISA court. This is always very shady, very secretive. You know, it's the highest level of classification. Most people don't have access to see this type of information. But Democrats have been going around denying this wiretap, saying it's illegal for the President of the United States, they're referring to President Obama, to tap a private citizen. At the time, Trump was a private citizen, but that's not true, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to FISA court orders. They can order electronic surveillance or even a wiretap on a private citizen.
They absolutely can. You're entirely correct about that. And I would remind the Democrats that are claiming otherwise that just a few years ago, and certainly during the W. Bush administration, they were crying foul on this policy all the time. You see that they've shut their mouths on that quite a bit and now are denying it. But the fact remains, the FISA proceedings are very, very secret, highly classified. There are only few people who would know about this. Now, we should make clear and note that in the final days of the Obama administration, he actually expanded the amount of information that can be shared across intelligence agencies, not just the NSA, but among the CIA and many other agencies where that was not necessarily the case. So an investigation of this nature could have come from any one of those agencies, and the information, as you and I have discussed before, could have been shared across multiple agencies in the the former Obama administration. And again, the case that I think really upsets the Democratic outcry over this, claiming, well, no, it didn't happen, is the fact that we've seen the transcripts of the Flynn conversations. If, in fact, there was no wiretap, why were those being put out there by the former Obama intelligence community? If it, in fact, was not part of some sort of criminal investigation, I think these people are going to be in a lot more trouble than they already are.
Right. I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's also worth noting that the average American perhaps doesn't know the difference or the terminology between wiretap and electronic surveillance. I certainly don't. I'm not a tech geek by any sense. I'm not in the intelligence community, but it seems the Democrats are being very, very specific about their use of words, and that to me smacks of a little suspicion. It smacks of them using it for semantics to say, no, there wasn't a wiretap, because that's not technically what the surveillance that we used was called. Adam, final question, and make it quick if you could, because we're just seconds away from being out of time. But as a reporter, you dig into this stuff all the time. You have your sources. This information on FISA is highly classified. It's already a crime to leak the information to us as it is. Do you expect that we will get, or that we will find the facts of this case so that we know the truth?
No, I don't think you ever will. I think that you'll continue to see targeted leaks of this information against individuals in the Trump administration, like we've seen with Sessions, Gorka, and Flynn. But I don't think we'll ever find out the full story here. My understanding is that the FBI found nothing, and that investigation probably on the books doesn't even exist anymore.
Right, so it's just going to end up being Republicans said, Democrats said, back and forth, on and on. Adam, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it.